Hello parents and welcome to this presentation today brought to you by Cricket Scotland in association with Working with Parents in Sport. We are here to talk to you today about great sports parenting in the pathway, how you can positively support your child during their sporting experience. In many ways you are already great sports parents because you have got your child to the level that they are at today, and to have done that you must have done lots of positive things. You certainly need thanking, and you can give yourselves a pat on the back for the amount of time that you have committed to travel, to financing equipment, to washing kit, and all the logistical planning that gives your child the very best opportunity of being successful, whatever that success criteria may be. We are not here to preach to you as sports parents. We're certainly not here to tell you how to do your job. But we hope that you will find some useful tips and strategies in the upcoming presentation that will allow you to have a really, really positive experience in the Cricket Scotland pathway. In today's presentation, we're going to teach you or get you to understand how you can best support your child during this experience, how you can provide the best sporting environment for both you and your children, and understand how you can communicate effectively with them. Now, if we were in the room with you today, like we normally do with our live audiences, this is the first question we would ask. What do you want your child to gain from their sporting experience? And we also want you to think beyond the sporting outcomes, perhaps how you would like to see them described on their wedding day or at their 40th birthday party. We'd just like you to take a moment now just to gather your thoughts. Now, did you answer one of these? Because this is a typical word cloud and the type of responses that we normally get. Yes, we do get some parents who want their children to be professional players. But if you look at all the other things, it's all around the character skills that parents want their children to gain from this experience. And the challenge to us as parents is, how often do we celebrate those life skills, those character skills? How important do we make them? Or do we just get so focused on the outcomes? How many runs they scored? Did they win? Did they lose? Did they take any wickets? Did they drop any catches? You have a key role to play. You need to ask yourself how much passion and perseverance you have for your own life goals. Then ask yourself, how likely is it that your approach to parenting encourages your child to emulate you? Your children will be watching you. You are the most important influence on your child, not their coaches. Most of their time is spent at home. And if you create the positive culture at home, it is going to have a positive impact on their sporting performance. Parents are often a better predictor for how their children grow their potential than the children themselves. Behind most top performers, you'll find encouraging, stimulating, and demanding parents. Later on in the presentation, we will talk to you about your behaviours and give you some tips and strategies that you can use to help create these healthy, productive environments at home. So what can you do as a parent to help your child? So initially, you need to talk to them. You need to understand why they participate. Let them know that it is all about them enjoying the experience. We often lose sight as parents that the main reason that children are playing sport, even in their teenage years, even in the pathway, is it's about being fun. It's about being with their friends. It's about them learning life skills. It's about them learning new skills. It's about them being healthy. And all the research that goes on in this, very few of them, if the children were asked the question, why are you playing? Winning would be in there. It would be in the top 10. But it probably wouldn't be in the top 3. And if you ask that question to parents, how we see the outcomes, if we were asked it, you can guarantee that it would be a top 3 answer every time. You need to have shared goals with them. It can't be driven by you. It's ultimately got to come from the child. And we know that if the child isn't setting the goals and isn't motivated and it's been led by the parent, we know that the chances of that child being successful or even staying in the sport later on will diminish rapidly. Ask your child how they would like you to be involved. You may be surprised by some of the answers. You're obviously there to provide key emotional support at the right times. That goes without saying. Being a positive role model is huge, and we will talk about your body language and how you behave on the side of the pitch later on. Children will often follow your example. In competition, children will react as you react. And already you are providing access to good quality training and coaching. So again, another pat on the back for you. And this is a really important one. You need to get you and your child to be focusing on the processes of what's going to make your child successful, as opposed to the outcome or what they achieve in the next few weeks. Now, on that word cloud that we created about what we want our children to gain from their sporting experience, you saw lots of those character and life skills in there. And that's the crux of the whole talk for us. Because do you know what? We cannot control team selection. We cannot control injuries. We cannot control other priorities. And we cannot control if coaches like our children. And we obviously don't know what life's going to throw at us. We need huge amounts of luck to make it to the top. Very few do so. And it's important that we recognise this. So we can't base everything upon them becoming a top sportsman. But what we can do is use this whole experience to equip our children with the life skills required to thrive in whatever they end up doing. And here are those life skills. These are the things that underpin high performance, and as parents are things that we are able to control. Commitment, resilience, determination, humility, patience, courage. Is your child a good decision maker? Are they good communicators? Are they adaptable? Are they creative? Are they self-organized? Really, really important character traits that will not only help them be a successful sportsman or woman, but also will help them in whatever they choose to go into. Commitment is absolutely vital. If your child is going to be successful, they will need to be committed. So what can you do? Well, perhaps work together on something at home, a long-term home project. In society today, there is so much need for instant gratification. We need to understand that sport is a long-term process, and your child will have to be committed for a long period of time. Don't allow them to miss their commitments too frivolously. Now, we're not saying that it's not okay to miss an odd training session or an odd game for a number of different reasons. However, if they're just feeling slightly out of sorts, or they start thinking that there's something else they may like to do, try not to allow them to make excuses and miss these commitments too frivolously. If they're really committed, this shouldn't be happening, and you should be ensuring that you're pushing them in the right direction. They need to see us persevere as well. If we just give up on things quickly, they will pick up on that, and they won't see those positive messages that they should be. And we need to understand what motivates them. This will help us when it comes to those times that maybe commitment is waning, and it helps us then to point our children back in the right direction. Resilience and determination, words that are used lost and are often key character traits in high performers. So what can we do at home that helps build that resilience and determination in our children? Well, we can't problem solve everything for them. In many ways, we've become a generation of parents who try to micromanage and smooth the road as much as we can for our children. But actually, we need them to suffer those moments of failure. And we need them to understand how to bounce back. And we'll talk more about that later on. Let them solve their problems. Yes, provide the support, provide the emotional support, but try not to do it all for them. Allow them to fail, to get themselves up, try again, and possibly fail again, and help them find the solutions to the problems. Try not to micromanage every single little thing that they do. We want them to work it out for themselves. And sign them up to environments that they have no previous experience of. To build those experiences and life skills and resilience and determination, often we need to be out of our comfort zone. And that means doing things that aren't always familiar to us. Humility. Encourage your children to focus on the processes and not the outcomes. We can't always control whether we're going to win at the weekend. We can't always control whether we're going to score lots of runs, and we can't always control whether we're going to bowl particularly well. But if our children have been encouraged to work hard in training and do all the things that make up a good performance, then there's more chance of that happening when it comes to match day. They need to treat wins and losses with equal measure and set the tone by how you behave in this respect. Any top level performers will suffer a number of wins and a number of losses. And it's important not to get too carried away when we win something or we do something particularly well. And likewise, not to get too down if things don't go according to plan or we are in a bad run of form. Encourage them to apologise when necessary. Get them to say thank you to people involved in their life on a regular basis. They should be thanking you for your commitment. They should be thanking for their coaches for the work that they're putting in. They should be thanking their teachers for helping them manage their workload and their sport. It's really important that they recognise this, and it all helps in building some humility in our children. And this is a key one for us. Don't define them on what they achieve. They will then take successes for what they really are. Your child is your child. They are them. Don't define them on their successes. It's all about them as a person, and make sure that they know that. Make sure that you love them for who they are as a person and not whether they are achieving in their sport. Patience. Don't expect perfection. We are far from perfect and never will be. There is no such thing, by the way, as a perfect sports parent. It doesn't exist. Because for all the knowledge that we may have, for all perhaps trying to do the right thing, I know firsthand that even living and breathing this every day, that I still make mistakes with my own children. Because emotions kick in, the environments around us kick in, and sometimes we make bad decisions. Some of my worst have definitely been in the car on the way home after a sporting event, and we'll talk about the car journey home at the end. Develop tasks at home that have multiple stages. Take time and try not to feel the instant gratification we talked about earlier. Do you make your child wait patiently while you are talking to other adults? Really good trait. Again, really good manners that will stand them in good stead. And patience is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. So whatever those goals may be, they're going to take time. And our children are going to have to wait. But they need to just keep plugging away at those processes and maintaining that really good attitude and commitment while they're waiting to get there. Courage. Allow them to try new things. This will aid their physical and emotional development. Encourage a sense of adventure and experimentation. Give permission for imperfection, allowing them to land badly more than once. And speak above them. If they are really struggling with something and you know that they are finding it really, really difficult, tell them, I know how brave you are already, and be the example. Tell them it's okay to feel nervous. Tell them about experiences in your life where you've had to be courageous, where there were things that you've had to do, where you were really concerned about them, where you were really worried about them, but you had to find a way of getting them done. This will make your child feel better, and it'll perhaps give them that confidence and courage to go for something that they were perhaps struggling with. Decision making. Ask them what equipment support they may need from you during this sporting experience. Get them to take an active role in what they eat and drink and when, and try to get them to lead the process some of the time. Ask them how much sleep they think they need. If they don't know, they can go and look it up. Ask them how much exercise they may be doing. You probably know that already. And explain to them the importance of sleep, recovery, nutrition, and encourage them to set bedtimes or when they eat and what they eat. And obviously, if they get this too wrong or they don't get the balance right, then you need to step in. But we need our children to be independent. We want them to be making the decisions for themselves and making good decisions. If we do it all for them and don't allow them to do this, we are robbing them of that opportunity. Communication. We need really good communicators, not just in sport, but also out in the workplace. And in this generation of devices, and we all have it, children on phones, the TVs, the tablets, we have a constant battle at home ourselves. But can you do a number of things that force communication or allow communication to happen if it is indeed a struggle? So do you find time to sit together for meals without TV or devices? This is really difficult for busy families, for families that perhaps have siblings that are also playing sport, and we always feel that we're being pulled in every single direction, and we never seem to be in the same car or in the same place or at the house at the same time. Can you find a bit of time in the week to allow this to happen? Get your child talking by asking them great questions, and we'll talk about this later, and inviting them into conversation. Don't give them an easy way out by giving them questions that allow them just to either grunt or say yes or no. It's a skill, and your child will get used to it, and you will get used to it. Encourage your children to shake hands, look people in the eye, and talk to other adults. They're going to come across lots of adults, coaches, people they meet if they tour abroad, and it's really important that their first point of contact with them is a positive one, that they are setting a good impression. And do you ask them to go and speak to their teachers and coaches first if they have a problem? You can always follow it up as a parent later on, but I think it's really, really good if these children go and try and solve the problem themselves first. One of the big criticisms from employers in the workplace is the lack of adaptability amongst the current young generation. Try to have some flexibility in your child's timetable, sometimes be spontaneous, mix it up with different activities and arrangements. See how your children behave if plans change. Help them to understand that plans do change and encourage them to react positively. Now, in their sporting experience, they will need to be adaptable. Out on the field, things could be changing all the time. In cricket, potentially by the hour, things could be changing. And we need children to be positive, be able to adapt, not get too stressed by changes to plan, and then doing their best. We want children to be creative. Don't give solutions to every problem. We only have to look at how cricket's gone in the last few years and the range of creativity in the batsmen. That comes about because they've had the environment to try things, to fail, to do it over and over again, have moments to practice where they can try new things. Ask questions that help them navigate towards finding their own solutions. Don't do everything for them. It's tempting to do it all as a parent. Can we sort of help a bit with the homework? Can we just do all the chores for them because they've got a busy week? No, allow them to do some as well. Give them ample opportunity to explore. They need free time. They don't always need structured activity. And if you do get an opportunity to play in the back garden or on holiday, try not to turn it, or on the beach, try not to turn it into another coaching session. Smiles, children-led games are the order of the day. This is one of the biggest ones for me, being self-organised. Because to be a top sportsman or be involved in pathways, children have to take responsibility. And this is one way you can really help them as parents. Do you get them to pack their own kit bag? I know some of you will be thinking about that now. You can always check it without them knowing. But it is really important that they take responsibility for what they need on that given day. Do you involve them in those chores no matter how busy they are? Because this is what they will face in later life. When they are 18 and they go and live on their own and they're still doing all this training that they may be doing, they will still have to go home and they will have their own jobs to do. Get them to understand this. Get them doing it sooner. It then won't be such a big shock later on. And this is a big one that came out of some pathway work that we were doing in swimming. Do you let them help with meal preparation or cooking? So it's great that these organisations will give you some nutritional plans, and you'll find some in the members area of our website as well. We hope you enjoy those. But it's no good if when your children leave home, if they're unable to cook, or if they don't understand the healthy food or how to prepare that food. The more you can get them involved at a younger age, the better. And do you help them to schedule their timetable to allow scope for education, sport, and their social life? Children who are in these talent pathways have very little time. It always seems to just be school, sport, perhaps bed. We need to get the balance right. We need to look at a week's planner or a month's planner and just make sure that we have got those balances right. All of the things that we have talked about there are things that you can do to help your child and what we know as great sports parenting, because they are some of the things that we are in control of. And we hope that we've given you some ideas there to help build those positive environments and cultures at home. When we spoon feed information to children, we do the work for them. We rob them of the benefits of rigorous learning. We rob them of effort. We rob them of that productive struggle. And we rob them of opportunities to develop grit, perseverance, and resilience. All those character skills that we've already talked about. Now, in that little section, we've talked about key skills that underpin performance and what we can do as parents to nurture and foster those traits in our children. We're now going to move on to look at some of the issues that you may face as a sporting parent in the pathway, and perhaps some of the scenarios that you're going to come across that maybe will cause you some angst. And we're just going to try and dispel a few myths for you. One of the big issues in parental behaviour or struggles with parental behaviour is that we struggle to keep things in perspective. Now, I know this from personal experience. I've got a son in a Category 1 English football academy. I know that there is more chance of me being hit by a meteor than him playing Premier League football for that team. Now, if I know that as a parent, I have to manage things accordingly. I can't throw all my eggs into one basket. Likewise, my child is still allowed to dream, just as your child is allowed to dream. It's far better to have a dream than no dream at all. But we are the adults in the process. So we've got to make sure that ambitions are realistic, that goals are achievable. We need to get our child to lose with dignity. It is just a game. I know often it doesn't feel like that, but in the grand scheme of the world, that's all it is. And if we can manage that, we end up with far better outcomes. Taking those wins and losses in equal measure, really, really important. Do you make time to eat together? When we're so busy, when we've got a successful sporting child and we are always off in the car, or we are busy and we never get back home at the same times, it becomes really, really difficult. And then it can become all about the child. Eating together is just one way of restoring some balance. Make time to do activities away from the chosen sport. Keep family life normal. Don't build them up too much. And this can include our use of social media and the things that we put out on Facebook and Twitter. Please try to understand that people look at those. And if we build our children up and they see that that is how they're defined or that is their success, then if it does go wrong later on, it is a much bigger drop for them to take. It doesn't mean not take the photos. It doesn't mean not put them on Facebook because they're great memories to look back over. Same on WhatsApp. But let other people join the dots together. Let the other people do that. Don't tell the world about how well that they're doing. If they start believing their own press, their chances of success diminish as well. And make sure you have planned the success criteria. Now, this is an amazing infographic from Blaine McKenna talking about the ladder of potential. I want you to have a moment to think about where your child currently is. Everyone has different levels of potential and is at a different stage. We know that sporting development is a long-term process. And it's really important that we recognise this as parents and that all our behaviours help our children get to the top of their ladder. They are on their own unique journey and we should not be comparing them to others. And we're going to talk next about dangers of falling into the comparison trap. Now, as you can see here, we're now going to talk about the comparison trap, and we brought up all the key points before we start talking a bit further. Now, comparisons are dangerous. Players will naturally do it. It's one of their most significant forms of feedback. However, there's a problem with this because people develop at different times and at different stages. And we know, particularly in the early parts of the pathway, that there were many discrepancies during these periods. Some children are well ahead of the game due to the amount of time they may have spent playing or practicing, or they may be physically and emotionally more developed for their age. And if you let your child compare themselves to some of these early developed athletes, they run the risk of potentially dropping out of the sport and thinking that they are not that good. It is really important that we allow them that time and allow them to know that it takes time to be committed to improve a particular skill. And we take the starting point sometimes as a sign of what they may be capable of, and this is wrong. It is far easier for parents to motivate and invest time for their children in something where there is already some perceived success as opposed to developing areas of weakness. But top sportsmen and women spend oodles of time developing those weaknesses. Current or early sporting performance is not an indicator of long-term success. We've got loads and loads of data of children who were brilliant at 10 weren't so good at 13. Really good 13-year-olds who weren't so good at 18. And we've just got to understand that it is our own child's unique journey. And those processes that we talked about earlier are the absolute key to them fulfilling their potential. There will always be someone better. And it can be a really testing time for parents and children, particularly when many of our selection and talent programs do select the physically dominant performer, the one who is competing well in the here and now, and not necessarily the one who may develop much further down the line. But if we know that as parents, we can try to communicate that effectively with our children, letting them know the following in whichever type of language that we choose. We need to let them know that physical advantage can still be big. Some children are bigger, stronger, and quicker and are likely to dominate, particularly pre-puberty. Some are also more emotionally mature, find coaching easier to cope with, deal with competition better, and cope with situations better than some other children. But this can be developed in time. Time spent is another one. There may be some children who may have spent the double amount of time on the sport than your child has. And at a young age, this can be even more pronounced. But over time, that can be caught up. And skill levels can be developed. They're not always based on physical characteristics. We have to accept, as I said earlier, that there is always someone better. However, more importantly, we need our children to understand that they must not compare themselves to others. They should enjoy playing with better players. They should enjoy competing against them and indeed learning from them. But they must never feel a failure or threaten to walk away just because they are not as good as someone else. Not at least until they've given themselves plenty of time to develop. They will never know what they're truly capable of until they have truly invested the time and the effort in the program. So the next time you feel your child may be falling into this comparison trap, be armed, ready to explain to them why comparisons may not be such a good idea, and ensure that they know that sport and development is a long-term investment and success is not necessarily in the here and now. Now we move on to the topic of growth spurts. Now, I've heard some great comments on the sides of sports pitches over the last few years. What are they doing? They look like Bambi on ice. I don't understand that they could do that a few weeks ago. Why are we bothering? It looks like they've done no sport at all. Now, when your children grow, whether that be mini growth spurts or they go through puberty, a number of things are going to happen. And you will notice physical and mental changes in your children. Now, puberty is the most documented one. And if your child grows a few centimetres quickly, you will undoubtedly watch them struggle to coordinate their actions. They will look clumsy. Those shots that looked so fluent and their movements that looked so fluent can suddenly look disjointed. If your child is a bowler and has suddenly grown and their levers have changed, so their arms and their legs, you may find that they will bowl more bad balls than they previously have done. It's a difficult time for a parent because we don't understand how this is possible. But it is just merely growth. And there's no need to panic and there's no need to criticise them too much. We need to be patient, which isn't always easy. It's a bumpy road. Puberty can last for between 2 and 5 years. It will take them time to retrain their brains and bodies to coordinate the movements once again to the height that they are now working from. It will come back together for them. Most girls will start their puberty between 8 and 13 and have their major growth spurt between 10 and 14. Most boys will start between 10 and 13 and can continue to grow until around 16, 17 years of age. You will notice an increase in body size, in their hormones, their muscle strength, and you will see, as we've just discussed, a temporary decline in their balance, skills, and body control. In fact, they may well just appear clumsy. This is just a temporary phase, with temporary being the key word. The more you can understand this, the better the environment you'll be able to create for your child playing as they go through this stage. Confidence is one of the key pillars of high quality performance. It's really important that we recognise when our children may be suffering from a lack of confidence. This could happen in small periods, it could happen for longer periods of time. You need to make sure that you are always communicating both with your child and your child's coach to evaluate whether they are suffering from a loss in confidence. So what can you do as a parent to help them build this confidence back up? Well, it's important that you don't over-talk or analyse the issue. It can be really tempting as a parent, as we watch our children struggle, to start over-analysing and over-talking to them about it. The reality is that children are not stupid and they will probably already recognise and be aware of the issue. By over-talking the issue, we run the risk of highlighting it even more and damaging their confidence even further. Be positive with them. Don't tell them that you are worried. Your worry can often be interpreted by your child as a vote of no confidence. Make sure that when you express parental confidence, it engenders the child's confidence. Support all the positive parts of their game. Find plenty of opportunities to praise all of the things that they have done well, both in training and in matches, avoiding any negative connotations. As always, try to focus your praise on the hard work, effort, and character skills that we spoke about earlier. Encourage your child to practice. Confidence is based on evidence and experience. By constantly working on their skills or indeed areas of difficulty, they will know what they are capable of and in time will have more faith in their ability. Build on previous achievements. Keep encouraging them. Tell them what they have done well and get them to focus on the now. Don't keep reminding them of past losses, previous struggles. Focus on being positive so that they can perform well today. You will find even more information on how you can help build confidence in your child in the members area of the Parents in Sport website. So how do we bounce back from failure? Or how do we help our children bounce back from failure? Well, we need to ensure that the focus remains on the processes and not the outcomes. We need them to stop fearing failure. There is nothing wrong with failure. It is merely part of the learning process. And if they fear failure too much, they will never try new things. They will never be creative. They will never truly go for something 100%. And we have to create those environments where failure is okay. The very best sports people have endured lots and lots of failure. Don't allow them to create a false narrative. Now, by that we mean if something has gone wrong on a given day, it does not mean that it'll be the same next week or the week after that. Don't allow them to dwell on it. Don't allow them to say, well, that's what happened last week. That's what happened 2 weeks ago. Yesterday has gone. They should be focused on tomorrow and it should be positive. And those processes that they work so hard on are there for them to use. Turn negatives into positive learning opportunities. Whenever we get that bad news, or we've maybe missed out on selection, or a game hasn't gone according to plan, then can we ask questions or explain to our children that actually, do you know what? It's okay. What have we learned from this? How are we now going to plan for the next stage together? What can I do as a sporting parent to help you? And encourage your child to be compassionate towards themselves. I know we mentioned this earlier, but don't allow them to get too down on themselves. They continue to get down. It is just a downward spiral to more poor performances. Try to get them to leave it behind. Learn from it, wipe the slate clean, and move on. If you can help your child rid themselves of the fear of failure, if you can prevent them from creating that false narrative, if you can see and help them see that failure is a great learning opportunity and tell them that they need to be compassionate towards themselves during these moments, you'll have done an amazing job in allowing your child to be able to bounce back from failure effortlessly. It's an amazing skill, not just in sport, but also in life. One of the most important things as a sporting parent is that we don't make excuses for our children. As we've said earlier, failure is an essential part of the process. And as we talked about earlier, I think in the States now they've been called snowplow parents. Those parents that just stand in front of the children and whatever goes on, they are just smoothing the path and the way forward. They're taking up all the challenges for them. If it goes wrong, they're making excuses for why it happened. And you know what? We are the role models and our children will follow suit. If we make excuses for them, for me, we have given them carte blanche to do exactly the same. Rather than take responsibility, we are saying to our children, do you know what? It's okay to make an excuse for why something happened. And we could always find an excuse in sport. We could always find an excuse why we maybe lost, or why we maybe drew, or why we maybe didn't bowl well, or why we didn't score any runs, or why we dropped that cap. But actually, we don't need to. And only as parents is it dented pride that makes us behave this way. And you'll notice, and we'll all have done it, that we tend to do this around other parents as well. Because we're struggling a bit. We're emotionally struggling because we all want what is best for our child. And we all make decisions because we love our children. But it's really important that the children don't hear this, or that we're making excuses for them. Use role models on the TV of sportsmen who really bounce back from adversity, haven't used it as an excuse, and then come back for more. And successful players resist making excuses by consciously recognising the real issues on the playing fields. They don't look for problems, they look for solutions. They don't look for a reason why something has gone wrong. They look for ways to improve it. And you can help foster that environment at home as a parent with your attitude. When we reach the level of sport that your child has, or perhaps in some kind of performance pathway, it's really important that we just think about managing their sport and school relationships. So here's just a few top tips. Speak to the educational establishment and form a plan. Regularly liaise and communicate with teachers and tutors. As we said earlier, preferably through your child, but with you having an overview and an oversight of what is actually going on. Get organised and stay organised. Get all the sports down in a week on a big monthly planner. Look at where schoolwork can happen. Look when projects need to be handed in. Look at when sports practices and games are. And every week revisit it and change it and make corrections. Manage time effectively. Okay, with competing demands placed on your time, you must plan your time schedule. You know that it's going to take time to get to games, to get to practice, as well as to travel to events. Plan your week. Don't let your week plan you. Really, really important. Plan the weekend wisely. It's often the busiest time. And it's also the time where you probably have a little bit more time than in a working week. Don't dwell on work, do it as soon as possible. Try to get your child into the habit of doing the work the moment it comes in. Try not to say, oh, well, I will do that later on, or I will do that next week. Try and get it done, try and stay on top of things, and do it as quickly as possible. And use travel time effectively. Some people can actually work in a car or on a train or on a bus. Some people can read, some people can't. So this will work for some, it may not work for others. But if you're spending huge amounts of time on the road, travelling to games, travelling to training sessions, if you can use some of that time effectively to make sure that they are staying up with, keeping up with their schoolwork, then it's a really valuable use of time rather than the dead time that it may be. Here's one just to help you as parents: parental peer pressure. Now, it's not some strange disease or something that's been labelled as a medical condition, but it can affect parents and it strikes when you least expect it. It is shared through often unsolicited opinion and just adds further difficulty to navigating the complexities of youth sport. Now, what happens here is we think we are doing really well by our children. We've made some good decisions, we've planned their week, we're getting them to all the right things. And then stood on the side of a field, we may have dialogue with another parent. Now, this may be in your sport, maybe in the pathway, may even be at school. And a parent tells us something that they're doing with their child, or the success that their child is maybe having, or the extra training sessions that their children may be having. I remember one year when, quite rightly, my son's football season finished in May, and I did not allow him to return until August, because we now know that the science tells us that multi-sports and children at a young age playing lots of sports have far more chance of being successful later on. So we had 3 months off. I came across a couple of parents whose children had played all year round. They were telling me how amazingly their children were doing and how they'd won a couple of tournaments. And we got back in the first week in August, and my child was struggling. And he was, and you could blatantly see that they'd done 3 months extra. And this carried on for about 2 or 3 weeks. And I suddenly doubted the choices that I'd made, even though they were based on science, even though they were based on expert advice. I was really beginning to doubt myself. And if you'd asked me then what I would have done the following summer, I would have said we're not having the 3 month break. 3 weeks later, and now in the middle of a season, he looks fresh, he doesn't look tired, he's improved, he's gone beyond those, and those early sort of parts of the season that were difficult have now gone and are long in the distant memory. So make sure that you do some research, try to find some answers, listen to what we've taught you about today. And once you've formulated a plan and you believe in that plan, then you commit to it. Don't be swayed by another parent and another parent's opinion about what they may be doing. What may work for them as a family and for their child may not work as well for you. So trust your judgment, back yourself, do some research, and don't get too concerned if you hear that somebody is doing it a slightly different way, no matter how difficult that may prove to be. Recognising and managing the chimp. You probably think I've gone slightly mad here, as though we're about to go to the zoo looking at the image on the screen. But this is based on the work of Dr. Steve Peters and the fact that we all as humans have 3 parts of the brain: a human, a computer, and a chimp part of our brain. Now, our human part of the brain is rational. Our computer part of the brain stores all the information that we've learned over all the years, and our chimp is the emotional part of the brain. Now, when we receive bad news as parents, or things don't go so well for our children, the chimp can go hyperactive and overplay its hand. And do you know what? The chimp part of our brain is impetuous, it's neurotic, and it's paranoid. And we've all been there. We've all been there. As parents, you may not have recognised it as a chimp, but that's what it is, telling you things that you need to be saying. And that's often where we say things that we don't mean, things that we later regret. And the thing is, when the chimp is in this kind of mode, we're not always in control of what we say and how we act, but we are still responsible for it. If you get that moment as a parent where you know it's not going well and something's really built up inside you and working, your chimp in your head's telling you to do this, 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 and this, have a deep breath, because the chimp runs out of energy and calms down. And the amount of time as adults where we've been really upset with something and then 24 hours later the world has seemed very different, that's it. That's it in action. So if you get bad news about your child during this experience, if you're not happy with something, just take a step back. Give yourself a chance. You need to pause. You need to move yourself away from the environment. You need to keep a wider perspective, perhaps accept what's happened, and then move on. I hope this helps you. You will all have felt it at some point or another. It's not a great mix when it's involved, when the chimp really kicks into children's sport. In the final part of this presentation, we just want to look at some of the communication strategies that you can use with your child. Believe in yourself, you can do it does not really work. We need to start having the type of conversations that allow us to speak, our children to speak, perhaps coaches to join in, but we need to get our children to understand why they can maybe do something. We can use evidence to explain it. I've been reading a book about success and wanted to talk to you about it. We can maybe look at the science and say, look, key study has shown that people develop at different rates. People who play multi-sports end up overtaking some of those children who specialised in just one sport at a young age later on. And have you seen this in your sport? Get your child to have a look as well. Help them explain it. We talked about this earlier when it came to growth spurts and talent development. People develop at different rates. Ask your child, have you seen this? Why do you think some are ahead now? Why do you think they may be ahead? What skills do you need to be good in the future? What is it that will help you develop this skill? What is it that you need to work hard on to develop this? And let them know it'll take time. So tell me, what will keep you motivated to keep working hard? Goes back to one of those very early slides in the presentation about knowing what motivates our child gives us the best chance of asking some really good questions or having really good conversations with them. What do you find helps to keep you motivated? Few little pointers there, types of question that you can maybe ask. You need to get your child to take responsibility, but talk to them about it. Why do you think taking responsibility is so important? And ask them, how could you take more responsibility for your own development? Again, they may surprise you with their answers. And could they do more? Could they do more themselves? And that self-organization we talked about and being independent, huge skills that underpin high performance. Behaviors, body language. Which behavior have you shown that have made you successful? What are some of the things that will influence your behavior? And again, this allows you to be positive with your child and their body language. If they can recognize, that hard work has paid off, do you praise that enough? Do you celebrate that enough? If they set themselves a long-term goal, maybe selection for a group, and it took them 18 months of training twice a week to get there, did you then celebrate the fact that it was the hard work and the training that got them there? Because if we positively reinforce those behaviours as parents, our children will think, yes, that worked for me. My parents celebrated it as well. That means it's a good thing. And we need to let them know that they can't do it on their own. And if we're not comfortable in the sporting environment and the coaches are the specialists, or there's other people who your child may find it easier to talk to, find somebody else. Ask them who they are happy to chat with the most. And then you can ask them, what sort of things do people do to help you? And they may give you answers about teachers, they may give you answers about coaches, they may give you answers about friends. But know your child, know what may work for them. Here's just a few questions. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. I'll maybe give you 30 seconds just to have a look at this slide. If you're ever stuck for a question and you're unsure what to say and you don't want a yes or no answer and you want to stimulate some conversation, well, here are just a few pointers. Some of them are quite obvious, some of them not so obvious, but at least allow your child to reflect on their sporting experience. And we must remember that it is their sporting experience and we want them to reflect, not necessarily give too much of our opinion. So when we give out our praise and we give out our feedback, we need to be praising effort. We need to be praising attitude. We don't want to be sarcastic or praise by comparing it with other children. If we are giving feedback or coaches have said something to us, or we've got our own sporting background and we feel that we may be able to help our children, then we need to give feedback that allows them to develop further, encourages them to reflect on their own performance, and motivate and allows them to embrace the challenge and apply continued effort. And the feedback has to be productive. No good it being negative, no good it being sarcastic. It has to be really productive feedback that allows them to move on forwards. Here are some examples. I know you've been working hard on this, well done. I thought it was great that you concentrated on your own game as opposed to what everybody else was doing. You found a way to develop that skill that works for you. Fantastic, that's really good. I love the way you took some time to think about what happened and tried to make some changes. I'm really proud of that. You performed well under pressure. What have you been practicing that is now really starting to pay off? I know you didn't enjoy losing, but I'm really pleased you've taken the time to think about what happened and what you can learn from it. Good job. These are just examples of the types of conversation starter that you can have with your children. Pick some of them out. Pick some of the ones that you like. Pick some of the ones that may work for you and your child. We hope that some of these examples will give you something that you can use practically immediately. And our final slide today, rather fitting, the car journey home. Now this, for US college athletes, when questioned, was one of their worst sporting memories. One of the biggest danger areas for us as parents. The type of question that we ask is key. How we greet our children, equally as important. And as we've already discussed throughout this presentation, it's a time when we need to let the child lead the conversation. And if we are asking questions, we need to ask questions that allow them to reflect. But we also need to know our own children, because sometimes after games, it is the last thing that our children want to do is talk at that stage. And silence is okay, particularly if it's gone badly. Just let them know that you can feel their upset, you can feel their pain, and you are there to support. Behave consistently at all time. Don't blame the others. And this goes back to how we treat those highs and lows and our body language. Our children can pick up if we're angry with them or annoyed with them. We shouldn't be annoyed with them in a car. It is their game. It is their sport. And our body language gives an awful lot away. Please try and get that bit right. And more than anything else, remember you are their parent and not their coach. You have a very, very different role to play than the coach does. And we really hope today in this presentation that we have focused on what you can actually control and what you can do as a parent to effectively support your child. From the team here, we wish you all the very best of luck on this amazing and unique journey. You will find lots of material on our website, including in this members area, the high performance part of the members area, where you will have already found this presentation after being given your codes by Cricket Scotland. You will not be perfect at this, but nobody is. However, we hope you're able to take away some useful tips and strategies that you can start to implement immediately. Any questions you may have, or if you want to stay updated with our regular content, please follow us on Twitter, please follow us on Facebook, and please email me. Anything that you want to know more about, please feel free to email me at gordon@wwpis.co.uk, and we will do our very best to answer those questions. We are here to support you. We hope that you've enjoyed our presentation, and we wish you the very best of luck.